Phase 1. Phase 1 is where the Marvel Cinematic Universe begins establishing its foundation. At this stage, Marvel's main goal is introducing individual heroes while slowly connecting them into a larger shared universe. Everything begins with Iron Man. Tony Stark starts as a billionaire weapons manufacturer whose technology is sold globally through Stark Industries. After being captured by terrorists using his own weapons, Stark realizes the damage his company has caused. While imprisoned, he builds the first Iron Man suit using scrap technology and an arc reactor powerful enough to keep him alive. This film establishes one of the MCU's biggest themes, technology becoming both humanity's greatest defense and greatest danger. Marvel then expands with The Incredible Hulk, where Bruce Banner's gamma radiation experiment turns him into the Hulk. Unlike Iron Man's controlled technology, Hulk represents unstable biological power that Banner struggles to contain. Then Thor massively increases the MCU's scale by introducing Asgard and advanced extraterrestrial civilizations presented through Norse mythology. For the first time, Marvel moves beyond grounded science-based stories. At the same time, Captain America, the first Avenger, establishes the historical side of the MCU. Steve Rogers becomes Captain America through the Super Soldier program during World War II, while Hydra's discovery of the Tesseract quietly introduces the Space Stone years before the Infinity Saga fully develops. Everything eventually leads into the Avengers. Loki uses the Tesseract to open a portal above New York, allowing the Chitauri invasion to begin. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye unite for the first time as the Avengers. This film proves that a fully interconnected superhero universe can work on a global scale and becomes the true beginning of the MCU as a franchise. Phase 2. Phase 2 focuses on expansion and consequences. The heroes already exist, so the MCU begins exploring how their actions affect politics, technology, and the larger universe. Iron Man 3 explores Tony Stark's trauma after the Battle of New York. Instead of portraying him as invincible, the film shows how surviving alien warfare psychologically changes him, pushing him toward obsession and over-preparation. Next, Thor. The Dark World introduces the Reality Stone through the ether, continuing the Infinity Stone storyline in the background while expanding the cosmic side of Marvel further. One of the most important projects in this phase is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Hydra is revealed to have secretly infiltrated SHIELD for decades, completely destabilizing the global security organization introduced earlier in the MCU. This shifts Marvel into political conspiracy territory rather than simple superhero conflicts. Then, Guardians of the Galaxy massively expands the cosmic scale of the MCU. The film introduces Celestials, Xandar, the Nova Corps, and the Power Stone, while proving Marvel can successfully tell stories far beyond Earth. The phase concludes with Avengers: Age of Ultron. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner attempt to create Ultron, an artificial intelligence designed to protect Earth automatically. However, Ultron determines humanity itself is the problem and attempts global extinction. The film introduces Vision, Wanda Maximoff, and the Mind Stone's true importance while beginning the internal fractures that later destroy the Avengers. Phase 3. Phase 3 is where the MCU reaches its peak in terms of scale, storytelling, and interconnected payoff. It begins with Captain America: Civil War. After years of destruction caused by superhero battles, governments attempt to place the Avengers under international oversight through the Sokovia Accords. This completely divides the team. Tony Stark supports regulation, while Steve Rogers believes heroes should remain independent. The phase also introduces major new characters and concepts. Doctor Strange expands Marvel into magic, alternate dimensions, and time manipulation through the Time Stone. Black Panther introduces Wakanda, an isolationist nation possessing technology centuries ahead of the rest of the world due to vibranium. Meanwhile, Thor: Ragnarok completely transforms Thor's storyline. Odin dies, Asgard is destroyed, and Thor fully embraces his role as king while preparing for Thanos' arrival. Everything builds toward Avengers: Infinity War. Thanos begins collecting all 6 Infinity Stones personally, systematically defeating nearly every hero opposing him. By the end of the film, he completes the Infinity Gauntlet and erases half of all life in the universe with the snap. This leads directly into Avengers: Endgame. The surviving Avengers travel through time to recover Infinity Stones from earlier points in history. The final battle against Thanos becomes the culmination of over a decade of interconnected storytelling. Tony Stark ultimately sacrifices himself using the Infinity Stones to erase Thanos and his army permanently. For many viewers, Endgame represents the emotional conclusion of the MCU's original saga. Phase 4. Phase 4 shifts the MCU into a rebuilding stage following Endgame, while introducing the multiverse as the franchise's next major concept. WandaVision explores Wanda Maximoff's grief after Vision's death. Her emotional collapse accidentally creates an entirely artificial reality inside Westview, while awakening her identity as the Scarlet Witch. At the same time, Loki becomes one of the MCU's most important projects, because it formally introduces branching timelines, variants, and the Time Variance Authority. This series completely changes how reality functions within Marvel going forward. Then Spider-Man No Way Home fully breaks open the multiverse by bringing together Spider-Man villains and alternate Spider-Men from previous film franchises. This becomes one of Marvel's biggest crossover events after Endgame. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness expands these concepts further through incursions, alternate realities, and multiversal collapse. At the same time, films like Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Eternals introduce entirely new mythologies, cosmic histories, and supernatural elements into the MCU. Phase 4 essentially transitions Marvel from the Infinity Saga into the Multiverse Saga. Phase 5. Phase 5 focuses heavily on instability across timelines and universes, while beginning the build-up toward large-scale multiversal conflict. Quantumania introduces Kang the Conqueror fully. Unlike Thanos, whose power came from the Infinity Stones, Kang's threat comes from advanced temporal technology and control over multiple timelines simultaneously. Meanwhile, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 provides emotional closure for the Guardians storyline, while exploring Rocket's origins and the High Evolutionary's genetic experimentation. The MCU also continues expanding through projects involving younger heroes, supernatural threats, alternate dimensions, and legacy characters. Compared to earlier phases, the universe becomes much more fragmented, with multiple independent storylines developing simultaneously across movies and Disney Plus series. However, the larger direction remains clear. Marvel is building toward a massive multiversal conflict where timelines, realities, and variants themselves become the central battleground. Phase 6. Phase 6 is expected to become the climax of Marvel's Multiverse Saga. Unlike earlier phases that focused on introducing heroes or building teams, this phase centers around incursions, multiversal collapse, and reality-threatening conflicts. One of the biggest projects is Fantastic Four: First Steps, which officially introduces the Fantastic Four into the MCU. In Marvel Comics, the team is heavily connected to cosmic exploration and multiversal science, making them extremely important moving forward. The phase then builds toward Avengers: Doomsday, where Doctor Doom is expected to emerge as a major threat. Unlike Thanos, Doom combines scientific intelligence with mystical knowledge, making him one of Marvel's most dangerous villains. Everything is expected to conclude with Avengers: Secret Wars, potentially the largest crossover event in Marvel history. In the comics, Secret Wars involves the collapse of multiple universes into a single fragmented reality, where alternate timelines and versions of characters collide. What separates Phase 6 from earlier MCU phases is scale. Phase 1 focused on protecting Earth. Phase 3 focused on saving the universe. Phase 6 is expected to focus on saving reality itself.